Alrighty. Okay, so just sit down comfortably and lift your sitting bones and the fleshy bits of your bottom and just kind of rock from side to side for a moment and then settle down. I quite like to have a bit of height just underneath sitting bones, so the pelvis is a very slightly anteriorly tilted, and that just stops you kind of tilting backwards and rounding through the lumbar spine here, the lower back. So try to give yourself a little bit of length through from the rib cage away from your pelvis. So literally kind of lift up here out of the waist, and then roll one shoulder and then the other shoulder, and just let your shoulder blades drop down. So imagine you have weights at the base of your shoulder blades, and they're kind of dropping down the back of the body. And then give your head a little massage around. And as you're massaging your head around, start to take some big sighs out. So breathing in through the nostrils and then So sighing out is nature's way of releasing tension. So just try and do that in an exaggerated way. Breathing in and then take the head in the other direction as you go. Beautiful. And then take the head and place it bang on top of your neck. So try and find that sweet spot where you don't feel there's any holding at all. And then draw the chin in, so just literally back slightly. And imagine a mother cat has come and picked you up by the scruff of the neck, so you get a lovely long cervical spine here. Keep these shoulders down, keep the chest broad. And then with that nice loose jaw, nice heavy jaw, start to stretch your breath. So start to breathe in and out of the nostrils, or you can breathe in through the nostrils and breathe out through the mouth if that feels nicer for you, especially at the start of the practice. And then send your breath right down and then out. So this is the bit that's really crucial. We want to send the breath out into these intercostal muscles between the ribs and then up. So it's like you're filling a big vase of water, dropping the breath down, spreading it out, then lifting the breath up. And then as you breathe out, allow the base of your rib cage, those floating ribs, and the ribs down here, allow them to slightly drop inwards towards your spine, and that's going to let the breath just kind of pour out of you. So we want to slow and stretch the breath so we can direct it right here, especially here, into these intercostal muscles and into the back of our lungs, where we have most of our lung capacity, and just get out of the habit of shoulders forward, breathing into this tiny bit of space here at the top of the lungs, or kind of pressing the breath right down into our lower belly and therefore kind of onto the pelvic floor. So I like to imagine it's an accordion, and as you breathe in, you're kind of pulling the accordion open. So the diaphragm's pulling the breath into those lungs. And as you breathe out, you're pressing the breath out of you. It's like the accordion is closing, and you're letting that breath just pour out of you, and making sure that your exhalation is long, really nice and long, because when we extend that exhalation, we also tell the brain that we're safe, and we go into that parasympathetic nervous system, and that's when healing takes place, and it's also when the muscle fibers are able to release, because we're not in this kind of a hyper alert state, we're in a relaxed state, so the muscle fibers can release and we can start to let go of tension. All right, so once you've established that Ujjayi breath, we're then going to connect the diaphragm here with the pelvic diaphragm at the bottom here. So this is one big canister really, with the pelvic floor and the pelvic diaphragm that holds your organs in place at the bottom, and the lung diaphragm at the top. They work together. So as you breathe in, see if you can feel an almost a spreading out through your pelvic floor muscles. And then as you exhale and the diaphragm is pushing the breath out of your body, see if you can gather the pelvic floor muscles in and slightly up, just a very gentle, very subtle lift, Mula Bandha in yoga. So we're breathing in to soften the pelvic floor muscles and breathing out to slightly activate them. And then I'm going to get you to exaggerate that a bit more. So as you exhale, see if you can squeeze through the anus, squeeze through the urethra, lift up through the vagina, and then release back down as you inhale. Exhale, gathering and lifting, and then inhaling, softening. The pelvic floor is receiving that breath. So it's an exhale, gather, lift, inhale, dropping down. And I know that's, hopefully you guys will have got that pattern by now, but it's kind of the opposite from what you think. You're sort of thinking, oh, I'll inhale and I'll pull everything up, but it's the opposite. The inhale is the opening, it's the receiving. The exhale is when we are working with our internal mechanical system and we are gathering and just accentuating what is happening naturally, getting that lovely lift, that tone, and then receiving the breath, getting that vascular flow through the pelvic floor. Good. So just doing a couple more of those, holding the top of that exhale and then inhaling to release. Beautiful. I'm going to need to take the fingertips on top of the shoulders here. Pull your elbows together, drop your head, stretch the back of your neck. And then as you inhale, draw your elbows back. So we stretch these pectoral muscles and maybe lift the chin slightly. Exhaling to round, dropping the head. Inhaling to open. Starting to get a bit of movement through that thoracic spine. So the mid-back, the bra strap area. And then allow the lower back to mobilize as well. And start to tuck and lift your tail. So it's a bit like cat and cow when we're on all fours. Exhaling and inhaling, starting to release accumulated tension through the spine. That's it. Beautiful. And then just gliding that left hand down on the mat and right arm up. Drop the shoulder down here. So often I see this. Try to create as much space between your ear and your shoulder as possible. Imagine the wall is literally right behind you and you're pressing your elbow into the wall. So it doesn't matter if you're just here. I'd rather that than if you're pulling yourself all the way forward and to the side. So we are stretching the rib cage away from the pelvis. We're flaring those ribs, almost like a fan. We're opening them up. And you're consciously stretching the breath into those intercostal muscles, creating as much space as you can between the ribs, taking the breath into the back of the lungs as well. So we're actively using the full lung capacity so that we also find during the daytime, we start to slow the breath naturally. We start to create more breath in all parts of the lungs. Now leave the head where it is. Slowly take the fingertips down. Get that nice stretch between your ears and your shoulders. So pull out through those middle fingers and maybe just move the head very slightly. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in, imagine a light is pouring down this area. And then as you exhale, just go, ah. And then drop the head, roll the head to the other side. Lovely lateral stretch on this side as well. And the spine loves this sideways movement because we do so much forward movement in our lives. Very little sideways bending. It's just so nice. Now, drop the hip down to the ground as you lift the rib cage. So keep dropping it, lifting the ribs. Dropping it, lifting the ribs. Getting that lovely stretch out through the sideways tier. Good. And then leave the head where it is. Drop the fingertips. Let that neck stretch. Breathe into the muscle fibers here. Side out. That's the way. And then dropping the head again, coming back into the center. Close the eyes for a moment. I'm going to get you to actually turn your palms to face the ceiling. So open your eyes just for a second while I show you this. Fingertips together. As you breathe in, open your hands like a lotus flower. And then as you exhale, draw your fingertips together and draw your pelvic floor up. So as you inhale, open those fingers, relax the pelvic floor. As you exhale, fingertips come in, pelvic floor lifts. So I just want you to get into this little rhythm and slow and stretch the breath as we create that lovely vascular flow down into those pelvic floor muscles, slowing, directing the breath, and then start a body scan. So as you inhale, draw your attention right up your spine through the crown of your head. And as you exhale, flow your attention through the body, right down into the pelvis. If you find doing the fingers with the visualization a bit complex, a bit too much, then just drop the fingers and instead just move your mind up and down and around your body as you breathe, noticing where you are holding tension or discomfort today. And this is simply an observation, a swadhyaya it's called, observing the body with no judgment, no stories attached, just looking at, okay, yes, that's where I want to be working today, or I can definitely feel that niggle there today, and how interesting, when I'm sitting like this, I'm noticing this. And it's all just interesting. It's almost like note taking. Beautiful. One more. And releasing. And then take your feet out. Miranda, this is for you. So feet stretched. You can just take your hands behind you and caterpillar your feet along the mat. Also for you, Laura. So stretching those toes out and caterpillaring the feet. Massaging the feet. This is such a nice thing to do if you're in the grass or on sand. And I actually do this now most mornings because I wake up and I find my feet are quite stiff. I've got arthritis in one of my feet. So I do this and it really helps. I mean, it really, really helps, especially if I'm doing a bit of running, to first of all, mobilize the feet. So we'll do more of that actually. So I'm going to get you to pick up one foot. Now try not to collapse. Try to stay nice and tall. So you're actually using your corsatory muscles here. Take your fingers, I might come forward a little bit so you can see me. Take your fingers and thread them through your toes. So see if you can do that. It means pushing your toes apart with your fingers. Shoulders are down away from your ears, not like this, so drop your shoulders. Now just mobilize your ankles. So move your ankle around and try and kind of stretch your foot as you do this, one direction and then the other. And then turn your foot. So you can see I'm actually kind of turning it around. Now, obviously, if you have got injuries in the foot, you want to just be gentle here. But as I'm finding with arthritis in my foot, if I don't mobilize it, if I just kind of move away constantly from discomfort, it doesn't actually help it. I need to keep things moving. So just turning the foot from one side to the other, it actually makes the foot free up quite nicely. I'm just going to hold it there, and then again massaging that ankle around, and then give your foot a bit of a bash on the sole, waking up the foot. And if you go right on the inside of your foot here, that's kind of waking up the whole central nervous system. Good. Hopefully your feet aren't too dirty. So take your other hand, slide it between your toes. Again, try and sit up, shoulders away from ears. Mobilize the ankle. Keep breathing. Don't forget to breathe. One direction and then the other. And just look at your feet. They're pretty awesome. They might not look that pretty. Mine don't. But just think about what these feet do and how they hold you every day and how they take you from place to place. And just mobilize now one way and then the other, sort of moving your hand in order to mobilize the foot. Good. And then again, just giving the bottom of your foot a bit of a wake up pat, especially along the inside of that foot, which is the equivalent to your spine. Good. Alrighty, woken up feet. Woken up feet. Our feet are woke. Okay, so take your feet over to one side now. So zigzag your feet. If you take your feet over to the left, working onto your right. Hang on. your left, yes, onto your left glute. So I'm doing opposite to you. So squeeze your left glute, squeeze it, wake it up, and roll your hip forward, and then release it behind you. So actually imagine that you have a string from the crown of your head lifting you up. So keep the torso pretty straight and let all the work happen through this rotation of the hip joint and activation of your glute. So we're just working. Left glute squeezes, roll forward, release back. Left glute squeezes, rolls forward, releases. So hold that squeeze now, hold that rotation forward so we can create a bit of an extension, lengthen through these hip flexors, these psoas muscles here, and a little bit of extra pressure through the knee. As you put the pressure through the knee, turn your torso so you're facing over your other bent knee. Now, this is the bit which can be a bit tricky. Lean forward and see if you can pick up your back foot. So you kind of roll onto the front of your knee, take the palm of your hand and slap it onto the back of your foot. So you don't grab the front of your foot, you put your open hand onto the back of your foot by your big toe. Now, if your arm's like that, see if you can stretch your arm out so we create a nervy open stretch into these pectoral muscles. Yeah, so just go to, obviously, Alison, if that's sore, you keep it bent and you just slightly go into the stretch and then bring it back again. Slightly go into the stretch, bring it back, okay? So if it's comfortable, if it's okay, it was feeling a bit nervy here, but if it's within, you know, decent comfort, then turn the chest, turn the head, and breathe into that deep stretch right across the chest, right down that inner arm. This is the heart one meridian going into the lung one meridian. And then to intensify it, you put a little bit of pressure of the foot into the hand, but you don't let the hand move. Beautiful, dropping that side. So we just open that shoulder, give it a little roll here, and then window wipe your knees from side to side. Get your hips ready for the other side. So taking the feet over to the other side, working on that right glute now. So we just squeeze the right glute, we roll it forward. Now you might find that one side feels different from the other, especially if your pelvis is slightly asymmetrical. So we want to go into that tightness and then back off it slightly, and then go into that tightness with the breath and then back off it again. Squeeze that glute, roll forward, open up into these psoas muscles, and then drop. So these muscles, they go from the inner thigh right through the pelvis, through the pelvic floor, through the diaphragm, and then they attach into your lower back. So you can imagine when we're doing lots of sitting at our computer or on our phone, you can imagine how foreshortened that area gets, and how lower back pain can often be attributed to this malfunction, this psoas muscle malfunction. So squeeze, release, and then squeeze, hold the squeeze. So hold that gluteal muscle, roll slightly onto your knee, and then even up further, grab the back of your foot. So if you can, start to lengthen the arm. That's going to give you that nervy stretch right down and into these pectoral muscles. This is also where most of us are tight. So shoulders roll forward, posture's mucked up, and very frequently we'll get that impingement into the shoulders. So keep that arm straight, turn yourself over the bent knee, maybe a little bit of pressure of foot into hand. Crown of the head is lifted, smooth breath. Beautiful. And then just coming onto all fours. Onto all fours. Spread your hands. So we want to have nice wide fingers. Maybe roll the wrists. Lubricate those wrists slightly. Good. And then lifting the tail. Let's tuck the toes for the moment. So lift the tail right up behind you. Bit of an exaggerated lift to start off with. And then tuck the tail right under. So imagine you have got a wonderful big tail, like a snow leopard or something like that. I watched the new David Attenborough last night, and The snow leopards were magnificent and they had massive tails. So I was thinking that, if you had a tail like that, you would want to lift it as high as possible. So we're going to lift it and then tuck it, and then let the rest of your spine kind of ripple out from that lift and ripple from that tuck. So the tail is the beginning of our core, the beginning of the pelvic floor, which is the beginning of our core. So we want to be led by the tail here. And then make sure your breath is also working with your movement. So we start to inhale, we start to lift, we finish the inhale. We start to exhale, we start to ripple, and then we finish the exhale. Beautiful. And you might want to shimmy your hips from side to side slightly. That's the way. And now take the tail and swirl it. So big circles of the pelvis. Make this nice and slow. And you might find that the elbows and the shoulders want to start swirling as well. Good. I'm just going to untuck toes. Please do so too if that's more comfortable. So one direction, then pause and start with the pelvis rolling. So it's like you're drawing a circle on the wall behind you, and then let the elbows go. So we want to kind of massage the body around. I noticed when I was teaching this one time, I kind of like a sock in a dryer. So you're rolling around the drum of the dryer. That's the way. Now take your knees a bit wider, drop your pelvis down towards your heels. If you feel heavy through the pelvic floor tonight, just keep your tail slightly lifted. Otherwise, drawing the pelvis back, stretching through the lower back, hands out in front of you, reach your fingers away from you and take your wrists off the ground. So rather than just kind of letting your arms flop, see if you can get a bit of extension here. Now, if your shoulder's feeling yucky, just bend that side. Don't press into it too much. But all of you, take the base of the shoulder blade down towards your hips. So you want to consciously drop those shoulders right away from your ears. Your crown is lengthening forward. So it's almost like you've got a turtle head. You're pulling your head forward, shoulders, your little house is drawing backwards. Really stretch and lengthen the spine and take your breath into the back of your lungs. So see if you can imagine as you breathe, you've got wings that are unfurling on the inhale, dropping back on the exhale. So you're really sending the breath into the back of your lungs. Look up between your hands. Take your hands back towards you and then slide your way down onto your belly on the mat. Tops of the feet on the ground, fingers wide and hands close to your shoulders. So make sure the arms aren't like this. You've got your elbows close into your body. So I'm going to turn around here a bit. Now, we want to keep those feet pressing into the ground so our legs are active, knees are almost coming off, but bum doesn't squeeze. We're not pushing our pubic bone into the ground at the moment. Bum is just kind of there, but legs are active. As you inhale, send that energy right up to the crown of the head and just lift up slightly. As you exhale, deflate down. So the tops of the feet push into the ground. You inhale, the chest expands, you lift, you exhale down. My hands are pretty light on the ground. I am pushing a tiny bit, but not very much. So we want to make the breath activate the tiny little muscles, the multifidi muscles around your spine, rather than just kind of pushing up and down like that, which will go straight into our lower back. So we want to breathe in, and you might hardly move. It might just be a tiny bit of movement here, like so. Tiny bit. That's absolutely fine. Over time, you're going to find your back become stronger, and you can go up that little bit higher. So breathing in and down. Now take your arms out, pretend you're on a parachute. So breathe in, stretch all four corners of your body out and up, and then release down again. So this time you are going to find your bum gets a little bit active as you lift, and then down. Good. If you have lower back squeeziness, yuckiness right now, take your tummy button to your spine and don't come up so high. Yes, you still activate the back line of the body, but we just are a bit kinder to the lower back. Beautiful. Now come into Sphinx pose. So hands are wider and elbows are underneath your shoulders. Now pull your forearms in towards you and let your chest draw forward and let your shoulders draw back. Tops of the feet on the ground again. And draw the chin in and just kind of feel that wonderful extension, that stretch through the front of the body, and a bit of work on the upper back. You want to feel those muscles squeezing slightly. And then drop one shoulder and look over the other shoulder. And you're rinsing out the shoulders and the neck. Now breathe with it, so you're very conscious of how far you're going. If it feels good, drop into that twist. If you're nurturing injury, then we use the breath to take us to our edge, and then we back off. Beautiful. And then slowly come back down again. Take your fingertips down towards your toes. Roll your shoulders back here. So you can see, if I just go like that, nothing happens. But if I roll my shoulders back, I'm activating the rhomboids between my shoulders. So roll them back, fingertips active. Now inhale, tummy button off the ground. So suck your tummy button up towards the spine. Inhale again and rock it forward with the crown of the head. Rock it back with toes and fingers. Activating the back line again, starting to activate the bum, and slowly come down. Good. Hands underneath the forehead now, shoulders away from ears. Lift your left foot up towards the ceiling, flex your toes down towards the ground. So heel is pushing upwards. Now, squeeze your glutes slightly until your knee comes off the ground just a little bit. Tummy button might need to lift up towards the spine as well to protect your lower back. Now we're just simply squeezing the glute and pulsing the heel up towards the ceiling. You're going to feel the front of your pelvis dropping into the mat. That's fine. So just trying to activate just the glute. So don't let this happen. This is gone. Don't let that happen. All we're doing is a little squeezing down, And it might be that that left glute is not awake. It's literally asleep. It's called dead butt syndrome. But we are trying to wake it up. It helps if you do little exhalations, little ha, 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 ha. Good. And then drop that side and see if we can do the same thing on the other side. So lifting up through the right ankle, squeeze the right glute so the knee comes off the ground slightly, and then little pulses, squeezing, activating right glute. You might go, oh, hang on, this is interesting. I'm needing to, you might find that you're needing to use the front of your thigh more, or you might find that you feel it on the other side of your lower back more. So it's all that higher information gathering, where you've got symmetry, where you don't, which side is stronger, where you need to give a bit more TLC to, and then dropping that side. Now take your toes in and your heels out. So your feet are like this, toes in, heels out. And let your belly be soft and just kind of rock from side to side so you release your lower back. And have your forehead dropping on your hands so that you get a nice release through your neck and your shoulder area. And then breathe so that I'm going to come up. So you guys stay on your tummies. I want you to breathe now into your belly and right out to the side. So you feel your belly and your pelvic floor receiving your breath. You kind of feel the proprioception of the ground. And it's a really nice kind of relaxing sensation. The whole of the pelvis is softening. And then what I'm going to get you to do is, with your toes in and your heels out, it deactivates your bum. It deactivates your inner thigh muscles. So we just work on the pelvic floor muscles. And I want you to do what we did sitting up. As you exhale, gather your pelvic floor muscles in and zip upwards, but towards your tummy button. And because we're on the ground, you'll maybe feel the front of your pelvic floor a bit more. So especially around the urethra, which can be a bit hard to feel sometimes, but it helps, I think, to be on the ground like so. So as you exhale, you're squeezing and lifting and then you're releasing down. But it's not really a squeeze, it's kind of like a gathering in and lifting and releasing. So you can imagine the urethra, which you wee out of, the kind of like a hose pipe. You're squeezing it in and you're lifting it up, and then as you release it down, it's widening again. So you're squeezing it in, you're lifting it up, and then you're releasing it down and letting it go wide with that inhalation. If your brain is frying right now because you can't remember if it's an inhalation or an exhalation, please don't worry, it'll all come with time. At the moment, just breathe and see if you can squeeze and lift, as if you're stopping yourself weeing, and just notice if your tummy button, if you get this kind of sliding and lifting sensation and your tummy button feels like it's coming up off the ground slightly. So that's a good thing. It means that we're getting active through the pelvic floor, and then those deep transverse abdominal muscles, which is the order that we want them to work in, always from the bottom and then up. And then just release that. Let's open up the quads slightly. So roll one shoulder back. Let's use your left shoulder first. Roll the shoulder back. Grab hold of your ankle. Flex your feet. Just drop the forehead. Now push the whole of your pubic bone and your pelvic area down into the ground. So your bikini line down into the ground. And imagine, so you don't actually lift your knee up, you imagine your knee is sliding away from your pelvis. And then exhale as you do this. Remember, the long exhalation tells the brain that we're safe and the muscle fibers can open and soften. So breathing in, breathing out as you push your pubic bone down into the ground. So for a lot of us, the quads are tight, tight, tight. Good. Now we need to move on because I realize I'm quite tired and I'm going to snooze. So drop and roll to the other side. Now, if your knees need to be wide, that's absolutely fine. Try to keep them as close as is comfortable. And if you need a strap, just use a strap around your ankle. You can just hold on to a strap like so. So we're going to push the pubic bone down. We're going to massage into the front of the pelvis. We're stretching into those quads, those pectoral, so the front of your thighs, those quads. Good. Okay, releasing from there. Now, as you exhale, push the floor away, slowly come up and come back into a tabletop position. Now, work with what feels good with you tonight. So if we go into impingement in shoulders, I want you to come back a step. Yeah. Now, also make sure when you're on all fours, if you're hyperflexible, if you're hypertonic, you don't let your elbows do this. I don't know if you can see my elbows just kind of flowing in and out, but we don't want that. We want to have the eyes of the elbows, the inside of the elbows facing each other, and strength. So we're using our biceps here. So don't just kind of sink into your shoulders. Make your arms work nice and strong, and have your hands directly underneath your shoulders and your knees underneath your pelvis here. Chin in, crown of the head forward, tail back, and the base of the rib cage slightly drawing inwards towards your spine. So we're not kind of just flopping. We are active through the corsetry. Good. So we're going to see if we can balance here. Bring your knees a little bit closer towards each other. Keep your chin tucking in so you still have that mother cat sensation. Stick your right foot out behind you and then squeeze the right glute ever so slightly. So we're going to keep that leg about pelvis height. Now see if you can take your left hand out in front of you, thumb up, little finger down, and keep breathing. And what we're looking for is stability here. So if you're wobbling all over the place at the moment, then just take the hand down and focus on creating stability here. If you're finding this one easy, challenge yourself. Bend your elbow, bend your knee, and then maybe do a little bit of action, squeezing that right glute. Keep breathing, keep keeping the torso nice and stable, and then stretch it out. Draw everything into the midline for a moment, so round through your spine, and then come down onto the ground. And just give your hips a little wriggle from side to side. Shoulders away from ears. Do that on the other side. So knees together, sticking your left foot out behind you, squeeze that left glute. Make sure your corsetry here is switched on. Try taking the arm out in front. Keep breathing. Wonderful. Staying here. If you're rocking, keep focusing on your breath, core switching on. Otherwise, challenge it. Bend the elbow, bend the knee, and maybe even challenging it more by squeezing that glute. Good. And then lengthening out, rolling yourself into a little ball for a moment, and then dropping down. Now, take your hands a bit wider on the mat, knees together, drop your hips to one side. So we want to get a deep stretch right up and that IT band here along the side of the pelvis. So turn around so you can see me here, dropping to the side. Now try not to kind of go all the way over. Try to keep your arms weight bearing still and strong. And then up and over to the other side. And maybe massaging forward and back with your hips as well. Just seeing how that feels. Beautiful, good. Now we need to open up these chest muscles again since we've been going all forward. So come up onto your knees and roll one shoulder, roll the other shoulder. Let's just do that a couple of times. Massage your shoulders around. Now, if you have a hard floor, you might need to take a blanket underneath your knees, because what we want to do is take the heels of the hands onto the top of the pelvis with the fingers dropping down to come into camel pose. Elbows draw together, so we're stretching these pectoral muscles. And the purpose of this is simply to take the vertebrae away from each other, to create space between the vertebrae, to keep us nice and tall so we don't shrink as we get older. It doesn't really matter how far you go back, so please don't go and hurt your lower back. Instead, focus on length. I like to imagine there's a string from the pubic bone and the heart center, and those strings are slowly being winched up towards the ceiling, and that action is what is allowing the body to open. So press your knees down into the ground. Start to imagine you've got those strings drawing up towards the ceiling. Keep pressing down through the knees. We stretch these quads as well. Lengthen through the waist. Heart center is lifted. Little sippy breaths from the heart center out through to your shoulders. Now, if you love back bending and this feels good for you, then you might even want to reach one hand down and then the other hand. But if that hurts your lower back, please don't do this. So opening the chest, breathing, wherever you are. If you are down there, maybe come back onto the higher level again. Now, imagine you have a string from the crown of your head, and that has now been pulled up towards the ceiling. So you draw the chin in, placing the head back on top of your neck, drop the rib cage in, so you stretch through that lumbar spine again, and then just drop down onto your knees and try and settle here for a moment, settling so that you feel elongated, you feel stretched out, and like everything's sort of sitting where it's meant to sit. And let's see if we can stay like this through the torso for the rest of the practice. Hands together now, elbows nice and high, and shoulders back. So you want to squeeze the muscles between your shoulders, those rhomboids slightly, with pressure through your hands. Now we're going to use our glutes to glide us up again. So as we inhale, squeeze your glutes, glide up and take your elbows out. And then slowly come back down again. If that hurts shoulders, just keep your arms lower. That's absolutely fine. You'll still get a stretch through your chest. If it feels okay though, elbows high, stretch and squeeze, and then coming down again. Now take the hands higher if that's appropriate for you. So we're almost going into a back bend and then coming back down again. Use your glutes, so glide up with your glutes, press down through the knees, open the body, and then slowly coming down. And one more time, up. Take the hands behind you this time. Stretch yourself out into your extended child pose. So once again, we're elongating the spine. Shoulders now roll away from your ears. A bit of extra pressure through your little fingers. So that's going to help you get a draping sensation down underneath those armpits, right down through these intercostal muscles. This is serratus anterior. We want this draping down towards the ground. And then come up onto hands and knees again. Lift your tail, tuck your toes, As you exhale, lift your tail high, high, high. Keep the knees bent, keep the heels off the ground, but focus on stretching your spine, rolling shoulders away from ears. Once you're there, once you've got your nice straight back, start to massage into those calf muscles, pressing the heels one at a time. And then let's see if those feet are a little bit more pliable. Roll around on your feet, roll around on your ankles. Keep that pressure through the outside of your hands, quite buoyant through your wrists. Just make sure you're not too close like this, or too far wide so that your weight is forward. We really want to look like a mountain with our buttocks, sitting bones peeking up like Mount Everest. Beautiful. Now I'm going to bend knees, walk your feet slightly forward, toes in. Bend the knees right down and let yourself fold forward. So we're in this kind of tummy on thighs, forward fold, holding onto elbows. Rock from side to side. Let your head be heavy. Give your head a shake. So we're tractioning the neck with this lovely heavy head, tractioning the upper back with the weight of our arms. Knees bent though, so we don't put any pressure through the lower back. Very good. Now take the hands just above your knees on your thighs. We want to push down and out with our feet. So we start to put pressure through the outside of the feet and we lift the inner arches. Down and out of the feet. As you start to lift those sitting bones and send the crown of the head forward. So we're looking for an upside down L shape. Crown of the head lengthening forward. Sitting bones lifting and spreading apart. Starting to push down into the ground, going to your limit with your hamstrings, just going to your edge. So if it's here, absolutely fine, but I'd rather you're here than straight legs and rounded back. Can you see the difference there between my lower back here and here? So the difference is shoulders right away from ears, base of the shoulder blades coming down, sitting bones lifted as opposed to tucking. So it's our tail, which does sort of go underneath. We want to lift the tail. And like I said, in downward facing dog and in this position, straight legs come once our hamstrings start to open. We're not going to get that unless we start to lift the sitting bones first. So come from this extension, breathe in, and then let yourself just flop forward again and give it a shake out. Ooh. Kind of let your jaw shake all over the place. And then come back again. Breathe in, push down and out with your feet. So we have that lift through the inner arches. And then again, go, ah. Beautiful. Now push the feet down, and this time we're going to slowly come up. We're going to roll the vertebra one on top of the other. Pause if you start to feel dizzy about here. Just pause. Wait until you feel okay, and then lift the head and take the hands up, up, up towards the ceiling. Push down and out with your feet again. Stretch those fingertips up. Drop the shoulders away from the ears. Keep pressing down and out as if you have roots through your feet and they're plowing down into the earth. But stretch your fingers up, lengthening one side and then the other. Beautiful. Stretch up and breathe in. And then as you exhale, bend your knees and just flop down. Like an ocean wave just crashing down. And then this time we are pushing slower. We're rolling up slower. Breathe in deeply. Inflate the body. Turn your body over to the right. And then exhale and just go, so it's quite a dramatic drop. And then let your left elbow pick you up. So you're going to stretch right up the side of your body. Take your arms up and over to the other side and go, And then let the right elbow pick you up. Push down through that right foot. So we stretch like a rag doll up and then go. Very good. And taking the feet wide. So I'm going to stay off my mat here. Wide like so. But make sure that your pelvis isn't forward. So see this a lot. And I don't want that. I want your lovely, magnificent tail, your pretend tail, to be pulled behind you and the base of the rib cage in. So you're not kind of flaring your bum back, but you don't have your bottom forward. Can you see what's happening with my knees here as opposed to here? So knees on top of ankles and heels. Heels are heavy into the ground. Toes are quite light. They're stabilizing, but they're quite light. The heels, though, are really heavy into the ground. Drop yourself down a little bit lower into your goddess stance. Keep the torso nice and tall. So we've just come out of camel pose. Keep that feeling of everything being stacked. And then keep the torso straight as we come up on a breath in and then soften on the breath out. So we're just getting the legs to work hard now. We want to push the floor away with those heels. Keep the torso nice and lengthened. So similarly, I often see this go down and up and down and up, but I don't want you to do that. I want you to make it a lot more controlled. And when we're doing this movement, we get to really work all our deep core muscles, as well as the thighs and the glutes. Good, and then come down, lengthen up and over, lateral stretch, press down through that left heel, stretching the side waist, shoulder away from ears, and then up and over to the other side, stretching, lovely lateral stretch. Good, and then this time, push all the way from toes to fingers. And then same thing on the other side, toes to fingers. And we'll do that one more time. Just get the whole body stretching. So we're taking that fascial system underneath the skin and we're stretching it, hydrating it. Come back into the center and then hips swirling around. So pubic bone forward, hips to the side, bum back, hip to the side, pubic bone forward, hip to the side, bum back, hip to the side. So it's just a kind of diamond shape, but then you make it a little bit smoother, like you're going around the face of a clock. Try to make it as big as possible, as slow as possible. If you have your hands on your hips, you want to lift one hip, drop the hip, lift the hip, drop the hip. And this is wonderful for the lower back, great for circulation through those pelvic organs, toning right around the pelvis, and take that in the other direction. If it feels okay on your shoulders, fingertips out, palms forward, middle fingers pulling back slightly. So we activate those muscles between the shoulders. Good for the posture again. Good, lovely, big swirling movement here. Fantastic. Toes slightly in, hands just above the knees, and release the upper back. Drop one shoulder, then the other. Breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. As you breathe out, just kind of release, rinse out. Good, and then lift the tail behind you. We'll just do a little bit more cat-cow, exhale around. So this is a dynamic way to work those pelvic floor muscles. You lift your tail as you exhale, kind of squeeze your anus. So we're working great for hemorrhoids, but also just great for overall pelvic floor tone and that movement between the pelvic floor and the diaphragm. Lifting and tucking, lifting and tucking. Now lift your tail behind you, swish it from side to side. So this is a good one for those hips. We're getting right into the big rotator muscles, right into the hip joints, and kind of compressing the joint in different directions, which is great. Beautiful. And then coming up, give your body a little bit of shake. We'll come into triangle pose. So take your feet about 1 meter apart, toes in, big toes in, little toe edge of your feet, plowing down into the ground. Now take the arms out to the side, shoulders away from ears. Keep your fingers nice and alive, but keep your shoulders relaxed. Turning out through your left foot, so it's completely straight on your mat, and then just turning your right foot about 45 degrees. So we want to have the heel of the front foot intersecting the arch of the back foot. Now, the way I do triangle is good for women who've had babies because it just looks after the sacrum. So rather than pulling that hip back, we're doing the opposite. We're going to roll that back hip forward like a train wheel while we stretch the front arm out. Now here's our triangle shapes, here and here. Drop the hand wherever it lands. Stack one shoulder on top of the other shoulder. So now you start to feel the inner thigh stretch here. And then if it's right for you, arm up towards the ceiling. Otherwise, hand on the hip. It's more about opening the chest here and getting that lovely twist through the mid-back. Good. So wherever you are, just move your head until you find a spot which feels nice. So it might be looking up, it might be looking straight forward, it might just be hanging your head, it might be looking down. So what I don't care about is where your head is, as long as it's comfortable. Good. Take the top arm and just give it a swirl right up past your ear and back, then drop it down. And again, let's just drop into the neck. So stretching here into the neck. Smooth breath. Now draw yourself down and then push the floor away and fluidly roll up. Turn that left foot in, turn that right foot out. Same thing, this time we've got our left hip rolling forward, stretching out through the right arm, drop it wherever it lands, stack that left shoulder on top of the right shoulder. Fingertips maybe up towards the ceiling or hand on hip. Now see if you can on this side, drop your bottom shoulder in slightly, and then you might find you can take your top arm back slightly or your shoulder back slightly, getting a bit more twist through the mid-back. Just a lovely place to rinse out. Good, and keep that hip rolling forward, just to keep the sacrum nice and stable. That's the way. And again, swirl that top arm, and then drop it, maybe drop your ear down, looking down at the ground, bending to the knee, push the floor away, roll yourself up, and just give yourself a shake. Good. And come against the wall for a moment. So we're just going to do getting tall against the wall so we can feel into that lovely whole body alignment. So taking your feet hip-width apart, spread your toes wide. So we've made that lovely space in our feet. And with your knees slightly softened, push down and out. So if you were on the beach, you'd have a perfect imprint of your foot on the sand and a nice lift through those arches. Stick your bottom back into the wall. Oh, actually, just make sure your heels aren't completely against the wall. There's a bit of space between your heel and the wall. Now stick your bum back. Now drop your shoulders into the wall as well, but don't let the base of your rib cage pop out. We want to keep the ribs dropping in. This is the difficult bit. Now exhale, push your hands forward, and that's going to make all those deep transverse abdominal muscles work a little bit harder. And then turn the palms forward and drop them down towards the wall. Now roll one shoulder, then roll the other shoulder. So you're kind of pulling your fingertips down towards the ground. Back of the hands in the wall, forearms into the wall, back of the shoulders into the wall, chin in, press the back of the head into the wall, slide your head up slightly, and so you're stretching the back of your neck. Now push down and out with your feet, soften your knees, push back with your bottom, back between your shoulders. So if you imagine there is an orange between your shoulders, you're squashing the orange into the wall, push back with your arms, push back and up with your head, hold everything here, pushing back, down, up, back, down, up, keep breathing, and then just soften away from the wall for a moment. You're going to feel very strange. I just want you to roll your shoulders, soften your knees, roll your head, place your head back on top of your neck, and just step away from the wall. And just stay here for a moment. So you are in Tadasana, your mountain pose, and see if you can just let your eye gaze go off into the middle distance and soften the muscles around your eyes and breathe down and out and then up. Full breath, and just feel what it's like to be perfectly aligned. So see if you can imagine you have a drop line from your ear through your shoulder, down through your hip, through your knees, down through your ankles and down into the ground. So see if you can find that alignment. There's a little bit of softness in the knees, the pelvic bowl and the diaphragm are sitting bang on top of each other. So we're not tucking, we're not pushing, we're just kind of absolutely straight. Good. We're just going to do one more core thing while we're here. So squeeze all your thigh muscles in towards your right thigh bone. Spread your right foot out. Take your left foot out behind you like so. Open up your arms like that. And then as you exhale, slowly draw your knee up and take your hands together. So breathe in to open the body, take your toes behind you, and exhale to close, like you're snapping crocodile jaws shut. So you're exhaling. Now what we're trying to do, keep going with this, what we're trying to do is imagine that a hip and the rib cage are squeezing together into the midline here. Opening and then squeezing. So we're working those very deep transverse abdominal muscles. We're working on our stability. Great for cognitive function because we are cross-patterning across the midline of the body. We're weight bearing through that standing leg, so working on the bone strength of the thigh, hip joint. Good. See if you can do this last one slowly, then take the arms out to the side and stick your foot in front of you like so. Crown of the head is lifted, core switched on, drop it, and just give yourself a little shimmy from side to side. Give your legs a shake, and then do that on the other side. So toe behind you, make sure your base is really strong, your thigh muscles are strong, opening the arms, shoulders away from ears, crown of the head is being pulled up towards the ceiling, perfectly stacked, and then exhaling, shut those jaws, opening up. It helps if you keep your eyes fixed on a point that isn't moving, so not me, just beyond me, maybe on the wall or on the floor. And try to keep the muscles around your eyes really relaxed. So even though you're stressing the body, by doing that and by slowing your breath, you're telling your central nervous system that you can cope with stressful situations. Or not, or you might wobble and go to the side, but all good training for the muscles in our feet. And exhaling, pausing here, stick your foot out in front of you, toes up, heels out, and then drop. And give yourself a little Elvis twist, side to side, releasing into those hip joints, one side, and then the other, massaging around. Good. And then your hips, big circle the other way. Now, before we come onto the ground, just to wake up our bottoms again, we're going to do just a few squats, just a couple of squats. So feet are hip width apart, toes are wide, knees stay on top of ankles, arms out in front of you for stability, base of the ribcage dropping in. Now stick your tail behind you. See how my knees are staying on top of my ankles? They're not going forward. So knees on top of ankles, it's your bottom that's sticking out behind you. Sitting bones are wide here. When we come up, the sitting bones squeeze in towards each other. So wide. Now, I want you to push the floor away with your heels and come up on an exhalation. So we exhale, we push the floor away, we squeeze our bum, sitting bones together. We inhale, widen those sitting bones, and then we exhale, push the floor away. Inhale to come down. Exhale, push the floor away with those heels. That's going to get the back line of the body working hard. Squeeze, and then down. Squeeze, and then down. Good. Exhaling, down, slowly, and that can be enough for tonight. Roll yourself forward. Roll yourself into that forward fold again. Now push down and out with your feet. Hold on to your elbows, stretching those hamstrings, stretching into those glutes. Just swing from side to side. Very good. That's the way. Good. And then coming down onto knees. For a moment, just drop yourself into child pose. So just settling everything down. So with this time, knees closer together, tummy just kind of settling into your thighs, either stacking fists to support your forehead. If you've got a brick, you might put a brick underneath your forehead. If you can reach down onto either your brick or the ground, try taking the arms behind you as well with the palms up. So here we can really drape the shoulders away from each other. We can really soften the whole of the back. We get a nice stretch through the lower back and into the buttocks as well. So pausing, child pose. So staying there, noticing how the exhalation becomes longer naturally, and how nice that is just to have a long exhale, sitting in that pause at the end of the exhale when nothing's happening. And then kind of watching as the diaphragm pulls the next breath in you, and then long exhalation. And then the diaphragm will do its job again completely of its own accord. You don't have to do anything now. The breath is already slower, calmer. You're just pulling in and releasing. Good. I'm going to get you just to roll over to one side and grab your strap. So you have your strap close by. Now, if you find that tightness through the chest means that when you're lying on your back, your head drops back, take a pillow or a folded blanket just underneath your head, so we still create that elongated spine here. And then take your strap around the balls of your feet and press your heels up towards the ceiling. So we're coming into the same position that we did as an upside down L, but now we are a correctly positioned L shape. And it's the same thing as when we're standing up. We want to push the back of our pelvis down rather than creating a rounded pelvis here. So you can see I don't want the tuck, I want you to push down. It doesn't matter how your knees might be like that, it doesn't matter. We want to create this long, straight spine, and also try and gauge your core. So drop the base of the ribcage slightly down and in towards your spine. Good. And see if you can slide, if your strap's long enough, see if you can slide your hands down so your elbows are resting on the ground, shoulders are resting. You can see how if I'm here and I'm pulling, you can see the tension around my shoulders. So try to release all that and instead let your movement through your pelvis and your heels pushing away do the work on the hamstrings. And you just breathe. You just kind of breathe, lengthening on the inhale, softening on the exhale, lengthening on the inhale, softening on the exhale. Good. And then sliding those feet wide, 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 wide on the strap, as wide as you can. Once again, don't let those shoulders hook up. Let the shoulders be on the ground. Take your feet as wide as they can with the heels actively pushing away. And again, it doesn't matter if your knees are bent, but just keep trying to push the back of your pelvis, your sacrum, into the ground. And then you might do little pushes out through the heels and then soften again, and pushes out through the heels and soften again. And remember, we haven't been doing anything for a long time, so you are going to be a lot stiffer than even a few months ago. Good. And just enjoying this. Maybe close the eyes and really notice the weight of your back into the ground, and visualize your skeleton. Visualize your skeleton here. Imagine that your skeleton is now being completely held, and all the little muscles around your skeleton that holds it all in place, they're being held now by the ground. So you just allow them to soften. Allow them to soften. Allow the belt to do most of the work here. Good. And then bend the knees, and you might need to take your feet a little bit closer. So come to baby pose, but supported. Stretching the inner thighs. So a lot of us are quite tight through the adductor muscles, the inner thigh muscles, and they feed straight into the pelvic floor. And so what we don't want is hypertonic or hypotonic pelvic floor muscles. We kind of want to try and get good tone. So that means releasing tension as well as creating strength. So tonight's been more about just unwinding a little bit at the beginning of this term, finding our feet and starting to set the scene for the next weeks when we can start to build bit by bit. And slide those feet together and let the knees stay apart. So feet together, you just hold your strap And see if you can push your elbows into your knees so you stretch your knees a bit further apart and get a deeper stretch into those inner thigh muscles. Softening the pelvic floor, softening the lower belly, feeling the pelvis pushing into the ground. Good. Now draw your knees together. Take your strap into one hand. Actually, take your strap into your left hand, arm out to the side, right arm out to the side. And then drop your knees over to the left, looking out over your right shoulder. Now see if you can take your left foot out of the strap. Keep your right toes in the strap. And then push the heel away. So I'm going to turn around so you can see what I'm doing. So you're stretching the outside of your leg. If that feels too twingy, just drop it, go straight into a regular twist. But it can be quite a nice way just to get a length through that IT band and a real corkscrew twist through the spine. We're also working here into the kidneys and into the adrenals, kind of massaging, squeezing the blood into this area. So when we come out of the twist, we release, we get a nice flood of fresh oxygen around the body. And bending that knee, sliding across to the other side. Just hook your left foot into the strap and pressing out through the heel so that we can come into a twist on the other side. See if you can look over your left shoulder. Sigh the exhale out. Sigh it out. That's the way. And then slowly coming back. So I'm going to get you just to take that strap out of the way. Take your knees into your chest. Massage your knees around in a circle, one direction and then the other. And then lengthen, lengthen, lengthen through one side of the body, pulling your other knee into your chest. Stretch, stretch, stretch. And then do it on the other side. Stretch, 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 stretch. Beautiful. And then flop. So either feet together, knees out, or legs just flopping out to the side. Just let your knees drop out to the sides. That helps to open the psoas here. Any lower back twinginess, see if you can grab some pillows and place them underneath your knees. Palms up, chin tucking back, and relax. Just let everything flop. Take a couple of changing breaths where you inhale through your nostrils and then you sigh out through your mouth. That's the worries. Everything just floating away now, letting the whole of your body settle into the ground. Taking your attention to the very crown of your head and allowing your awareness to float through your body right down to your feet. And taking your awareness just underneath the skin surface of the whole of your body. So you become very aware of the feeling of the air against your skin, but you also become aware of the vibration, the prana, the life force, this very gentle pulse of your body. See if you can avoid going into thoughts and instead just focus on the sensations of your body at this moment in time. And see if you can focus on the feeling of each breath, just moving in and out of the body. So there's no specific breath. You're just allowing the natural breath to flow in and out. But just notice where you can feel the breath in your body. Again, visualizing your skeleton, visualizing the bones of your body. And feel your bones becoming really heavy. Just feel the bones supported by the ground and start to feel your muscles kind of loosening their grip on your bones. So it almost feels as if the back of your body is melting wax-like into the ground. You're starting to lose the edges of your body as you relax, even more melting and softening into the ground. The ground is holding you, and you can simply let go. And just allowing that breath to become slower and more refined and silk-like. Just feeling that light rise and fall of the belly. Being very aware of the air around you, on you, in you. As you breathe, imagine that light and peace and tranquility is being drawn in and is connecting with and nourishing that very deep place of wisdom and peace that's deep inside of you, that pilot light, that all-knowing place. And then as you breathe out, just imagine that any tension, any subtle holding in the body and in the mind is being released. It's just ebbing away. And now consciously start to deepen the breath. So feel that lovely cool inhalation hitting the back of the throat and drawing down into the lungs. Feel that long exhalation warm as it leaves the body. And then as you stretch and lengthen the breath and make the breath a bit more vigorous, take your mind's eye from your feet right up like a beam of light to the crown of the head, and then flow it back down again. So you're taking your awareness up and down your body like a wave of light, ebbing and flowing up and down, so that every single one of the trillions of cells that make up this body of yours are being lit up by your mind's eye. You're washing yourself clean with your gentle awareness, feeling the mitochondria, the energy of each of your cells being lit up. Whole body lit up with your awareness flowing up and then down, every crevice, every little bit, inside and outside, starting to feel the body waking up from the inside out, starting to feel expanded through the body, lighter, as if there is more comfort and more air. And taking the attention down into fingers and toes and just becoming very aware of the sensation of your hands and of your feet. Really feeling into fingertips and palms, back of the hands, soles of the feet. And start to wriggle the fingers and toes. Give them a little wriggle. Start to move the head very gently from side to side. Be aware of the fluidity of your body. the water content of your body, so that you almost feel a bit sloshy as you start to move a bit more fluidly from side to side. And then as the whole body gets a bit of movement, slowly roll over to one side into the fetal position. And then pushing yourself up, so putting the hands on the ground, gently pushing yourself up very fluidly, almost as if you are seaweed, just kind of swishing around in the ocean current. And then come and sit and find your stability, find that spine, and stack the vertebra one on top of the other. Stack your head on top of your neck. Let your shoulders be soft. Notice how relaxed the muscles around your eyes are. Good. And then taking the hands into the heart center. If it's not appropriate for you to tonight, just listening to me omming, but if you'd like to join in, just imagining it's like a shower of sound and vibration pouring down through your body and down into the ground. And if you're joining in, as you breathe in, imagine the breath is coming up your spine. And all the way down. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. The love and the light in me bows to the love and the light in you. Thank you so much. Namaste.